Hey, what's up, guys? I'm back today with another Cardboard Kitchen. This is kind of a impromptu, last-minute thing. It is Christmas Day. As I'm recording this, it'll probably go up the same day, just a little bit later on. So, uh, Christmas season and everything. I got a chance after work yesterday. I got a chance to go um, spend some time with some cousins and everything, and it was fun. It was great. It was fantastic. But we got to talking, and because one of my cousins recently got into um, another card game that's been out for about 3 years now, according to them. Um, but it uses a resource management system different from what Magic uses, because here at Cardboard Kitchen we're primarily about the Magic the Gathering Commander format specifically. Um, so this is kind of a impromptu video, hopefully short, because I don't have that long. Looking at the time. Um, uh, but essentially, we got talking to the fact of like anybody who plays Magic the Gathering knows that Magic the Gathering has its flaws. What card game doesn't have its flaws? A lot of the people who look at Magic from the outside looking in, they say that their flaw is the resource system, which is the fact that your lands are added into your deck as you play. Like you shuffle it all together, and then you just have to hope to draw lands to be able to play things. A lot of newer card games are building their mana or resource systems as a separate entity from the deck that you actually play. So a lot of these newer ones, like your resource, it's a separate deck entirely. It's essentially a resource deck. And then part of the rules of the game is that every turn you get a set number of resources. Um, and talking with my cousin and everything, it kind of got me a little thinking of like how Magic currently plays, how it operates, the five colors, all this kind of stuff. But I really thought about it, and it was like, oh, if Magic switched over to a resource system where you had a separate so like, let's say in Commander you have your 100 card deck, which includes your commander or your commanders if you have partner. Um, let's say that's still the case, but now your resources, your lands, were in a separate deck entirely. And every turn you got to flip over, like you would have to shuffle that separately from everything else. But every turn you would get to flip over so many number of lands from your land deck into play. Um, and you just got as me and my cousin discussed it, it was essentially standardized resource production, because it was a standard that was universal regardless of what colors you were playing. Everybody got the same amount. There might be a slight difference if you went first versus going second, but essentially everybody got the same amount. And it got me thinking, well, that would eliminate one color entirely out of Magic. Like Magic would no longer need green or necessarily want green even. If when I think about green as a color as a whole, and a lot of like green does a lot of stuff. Green can draw you cards. It plays big creatures that are bigger than the mana value. Um, it can play things on curve that are good. It does a lot of things. But the biggest thing that it does is it ramps or fixes. In most cases, as you're ramping, you're also fixing. So if every deck, and if you go back and you watch my videos, my very first video was about better mana bases. I highly advocate for variations of lands that we currently have access to that I feel Wizards needs to make variations of that are the same thing. Like I talk heavily about the land Krosan Verge in my very first video. And the only sad thing I have to say about Krosan Verge is it's only for green and white. You can play the land in anything, but if you're not playing forest cards or plains cards, or both, it's a land that's not going to do you a whole lot. It's at that point it's a really bad land that you're just not going to include. Um, but looking at other games and then looking at Magic, if Magic switched over and made a huge functional decision to say, from now on you have your resource deck, which you shuffle separately. And the really sad part about it is the really odd. There's a lot of like mana ramp in Magic that comes in the form of artifacts that have costs. I don't believe that Magic's going to do anything like this, but if they did, would those kinds of artifacts now essentially be resources that would get shuffled into your resource deck and still have a casting cost that would require you to pay to cast them? Or would their mana cost be a negativity of, sure, you get it this turn, but you have to wait until X number more turns before you can use it? So like Sol Ring makes you 2 colorless and it costs 1, so you get it into play on that turn, but you can't use it until your next turn. It has to be in play a whole turn before you can use it. And then things like Gilded Lotus, it costs 5, it produces 3, so whatever turn it would come in, you would have to wait 5 turns to be able to use it, as a way to counteract like their mana value type deal. If it was something that got shuffled into a resource deck. It's very, very broad, very odd concept to think of, I know. But, thinking about the concept, I truly believe that if Wizards did something like this, green as a color would cease to exist. Green as a whole, as a color, would cease to exist. There are, as a green player through and through, the big motivation to play green is mostly the ramp fixing aspect. Being able to play things that ramp me to be able to do better stuff on later turns, that also in the process fix me so that I can fix my colors to be able to do a broader scope of things. And I feel like if every color, like let's just say, so I heavily advocate for lands to be universally even, like Krosan Verge. I believe every 2-color combination needs some form of a Krosan Verge. And I do mean Krosan Verge, not Myriad Landscape. In my very first video talking about better mana bases, I go into much more detail about that. Definitely go check that out. But beyond that scope of like ramp spells, like Farseek, Nature's Lore, 3 visits, Harrow, Roiling, Regrowth, all those kinds of things, things that are like, ooh, do this effect, go get something. A lot of those cards are staples in a number of green decks. Decks that play green, decks that are primarily green, mono green. Even 5-color decks are like, I've got a slot dedicated to like Skyshroud Claim. One of the new ones is Elemental Teachings from the Avatar set. Realms Uncharted. Stuff like that. There's even 5-color decks which have access to green still have some slots dedicated to cards that both ramp and fix at the same time. So I feel like if Wizards switch things over to just having a resource deck as a separate entity that was technically part of the 100-card construction for Commander, and everybody just, whatever turn it was, you just got to flip over like 2 mana sources straight into play. Like everybody just got to, like, I went first. The only thing about the Commander format about going first is you get to draw because it's a multiplayer function. So like I would go first, draw, flip over 2 mana sources. Okay, cool. I've got 2 mana sources, but I mean, again, when you have to shuffle, and that's the other thing, is a lot of these a lot of these other games, they have a singular mana resource, and um, it's not like color differentiated. Like there's not different colors of resources that you would have to worry about. There's some of these games where that's a thing, but there's not a ton of them. Um, but like most of these resources are most of these games that are doing these resource separation thing um, is it's a one resource type, and then everything can just be played off of that one resource type. So I mean, for Magic, it would be a little bit different. Like you would still have to shuffle up your resource deck, and then sure you could flip over two resources, but maybe you're a 3-color deck and you flipped over um, two different colored resources, but neither of them were the color you needed to be able to play something that turn. And it could be 2 or 3 turns before you get one of those appropriate colored resources. The other thing is, if you did something like that, you would completely eliminate the one of the core functionalities of playing green, which would your ramp spells. You wouldn't be playing your ramp spells. You would eliminate ramp spells entirely because I'm pretty sure if you did something like this, the concept and the token function would be that you couldn't search it. Like you couldn't play cards that would let you search your resource stack and just put extra resources into play. You might have cards that just let you put the top card of your resource stack into play. I know Riftbound's a recent game. It's been out for a few months. They have stuff like that where it's different colored resources. You get a set number every turn, and then depending on what color you're playing, there are cards in some colors that when they do an ability let you just flip the top card of your resource deck into play tapped. But they don't play anything that lets you search your resource stack and put something into play. I feel like, if Wizards switched over to this, green as a color would die. Green as a color would not be needed. Its primary focus of ramp spells wouldn't be a thing. You'd lose a lot of interesting creature types too. Like if green just didn't exist, elves wouldn't be a thing. Some of the beasts wouldn't be a thing. Some of your fun elementals wouldn't be a thing. Badgers, for anybody playing badgers wouldn't be a thing. It's I don't know. It was me and my cousin were talking, and it was a concept that kind of just kept me awake part of the night. And so I figured I'd come down here and make a video and share my thoughts. Try and get this put out before I have to go to some family stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't think Magic's gonna do that, because if they did that, it would. I feel like the game as a whole would lose a lot of what makes it good. What makes it one of the big three. Now, that does not mean that Wizards of the Coast aren't doing some things that I highly disagree with, that I believe is going to knock them out of the top 3. Yes, the game's been around for a long time, but if they continue to progress currently, in my opinion, again, it's my opinion. I'm entitled to it because it's my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to disagree with it. You don't even have to listen to it. But I believe that the route that they are currently going, ever since they started pushing out so much product and pushing so many other things, as far as their products are concerned, like trying to grasp at X number of IPs, sets, secret layers, special gift edition stuff, all that kind of stuff. Um, I feel like pushing so much onto the market has kind of made the game lose some of its luster as it currently is. It's still technically in the top three, but I'm pretty sure Pokemon's number one. Um, if Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro are not careful, because a lot of what Wizards does comes from Hasbro being like, yeah, sure, these are our ideas. We want you to make it happen. Um, I really feel like if they're not careful, if they don't slow down on some of this other stuff that they're doing, if they don't pull back a little bit and give their customer base the ability to breathe a little bit between product releases, and two, make better products. Some of the products that have come out this year, I have not touched, just because I didn't want anything to do with it. Um, I really feel like if they don't kind of start doing that, they will probably lose their spot in one of the big three. Even probably going below some of these other games. Like they might drop below. Like I said, I'm pretty sure Pokemon's the top spot. But like at the rate they're going, I really feel like if they keep it up, they might drop to, definitely below Yu-Gi-Oh, probably below the One Piece card game. Depending on how Riftbound goes over completely, because it's only been out for a little while. Probably dropping below Riftbound, maybe even dropping below Lorcana, and some of these other card games. Like maybe they drop below the Digimon card game. Maybe as a product and as a commodity as a whole, maybe it even drops below Duel Masters, and that's a huge hit in my opinion, because Duel Masters is a card game that came out when I was young. I enjoyed it. I've played Yu-Gi-Oh, I've played Pokemon, I've played Duel Masters, I've played Weiss Schwarz, I've played Magic. I've stuck with Magic the longest. I've played Cardfight Vanguard. It could probably drop below Cardfight Vanguard. I've played. I've probably played a number of card games in my time alive as is equal to slightly greater than half my age. For those of you watching that know my age, just because I don't want to state how old I actually am. But I've played a lot of card games. I've looked at a lot of infrastructures on how card games are done. A lot of newer card games have a lot of similar concepts built together as how they're designed and everything, that don't, I want to say don't pull from, but more specifically, most likely look at card games like Magic or Pokemon and try to improve on how some of that stuff works. But I've played a lot of card games, seen a lot of different structures on how different games are built, and there are some good structures in some of these other games. Some of those structures would be better off in other games than the game that they were designed for, but it is what it is. I really do believe that Magic as a whole could, if they don't slow down, if they don't take their foot off the gas, whatever they got to do, I really feel like it could drop really low in the card game listings, to the point where it's below Duel Masters, which is Duel Masters has done a couple of things. So Duel Masters was a game that came out I want to say early 2000s. It's been a very, very long time. I want to say early 2000s. It was supposed to be like a very child-friendly version of Magic the Gathering. The biggest, the two big concepts of the game that I remember is every card is a resource, and only cards with the blocker ability could block. So you had a mana pool where you could play cards into your mana pool in a different order than what it would look like if it was on your battlefield. But essentially, you never got mana flooded or mana screwed. You always had the resources you wanted or needed, depending. And then another big thing was only the units or creatures that had an ability called blocker could actually block. Which I thought was nifty because as an introductory game that's supposed to get you prepped and ready for Magic, that was very interesting. But the Duel Masters card game died out here in America. It is still going strong over in the Asian markets. Probably about 10 years ago, roughly about 10 years ago, Wizards of the Coast, which produces Duel Masters, chose to give it another try here in America. So they took the Duel Masters concepts, franchises, all that kind of stuff, and they rebranded it, gave it, polished it up, gave it a new sleek look, all that kind of stuff, and they called it Kaijudo. And they re-released it in America as Kaijudo instead of Duel Masters. Same game, no functional differences in the game. Literally plays the exact same way as Duel Masters. Just card styles were updated, appearances were made to look more modern and sleek, better aesthetics. Or more updated aesthetics, I guess. Not necessarily better. Some of the old Duel Master cards have really sweet artwork. Within 6 months of its re-release in America, it also died out. But both of those card games, both Duel Masters and Kaijudo, essentially the same game, are still, to my knowledge, heavily being used and played in the Asian markets, in the Asian scene, and they're thriving in the Asian scene, and it's very interesting to see. But if Wizards doesn't figure out what the issue is with Magic, it's gonna lose some spots on the CCG list of like most popular games, and it's gonna take a heavy hit. And I personally think that that's an issue of pushing too many products. I feel like if you slowed down on the products and you went back to, you could keep your rotation basis the way that it currently is. I think your rotation basis is fine, but I think if you went back to, like one specialty product a year, and then your 4 regular releases, maybe even go back to a once a year Commander product. Like it used to be once a year we would get brand new Commander precon decks, and then as the format grew, they took away the once a year product, which I thought was a good smart decision to have a once a year product for Commander rather than what they're doing now. And they switched it over to the vast majority of sets when they came out would have Commander products with them that would be themed around stuff from the set. Okay. Um, that was okay for a little bit because it was like, oh, here's a set, here's 2 decks. Um, all right. One of the 2 decks showcased or was based around one of the 2 new mechanics, and the other one was based around the other mechanic. Seemed good, seemed fair, seemed solid as an idea. And then it got to the point of, well, when we do these bigger, higher end sets, Modern Horizons, Modern Masters, whatever it was, and they were like, oh, we're gonna, put out 5 commander decks with the set, or 4 commander decks, or however many it was. You probably didn't need that. I know that there was one that you put out that you definitely didn't need, but yeah, I'm a consumer stating my opinion versus a horde of consumers giving you money. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to discuss today on Cardboard Kitchen is whether my thoughts as about Magic as a whole and what would occur if for any reason it ever switched over to standardized mana production where your resources, your mana resources within your deck were done separately and you just got a set number of them every turn. It is Christmas. My time is unfortunately very close to being done. So I will leave you with this. This has been Cardboard Kitchen. If you're not subscribed, please do so. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up. Share the video with your friends, family, coworkers, anybody you think wants to learn Magic, needs to hear about Magic, anybody seemingly interested in Magic. By all means, send it to them. Again, if you're not subscribed, I would love for you to be subscribed. The best way to interact with me is obviously leaving comments on the videos. I usually try to interact with the comments because with life and everything else, I can't necessarily deal with. I haven't found the time to get a Discord fully set up with moderators and things of that nature. I'm still trying to get a couple of other things set up. Also, shout out to anybody watching. If you know somebody who does video editing that is interested in a little extra work, please send them my direction so that I can talk with them and discuss video editing. I have discovered that the way things are going, while I love making the videos, they definitely need to be edited. And I do not necessarily have the appropriate time structure. I say appropriate time structure. I have the time. I do not have the appropriate time structure to be able to get them edited and put out to you guys. So definitely, if you know anybody who does that kind of work and enjoys it and everything, send them my way so I can talk with them and try and get all that kind of stuff figured out. Even if I just work with them to try and learn video editing, to do the video editing in my spare time, what little spare time I get nowadays. This has been Cardboard Kitchen. Thanks for watching. Go play some games.